But I don't think I've ever heard that word ever used in the Star Trek galaxy. So I'm Star Wars galaxy.
Oh my God!
Cardinal sin. Cardinal sin. I said Star Trek. Star Wars.
We just became really
Star
popular
Trek.
for the wrong reasons, Mike.
Star Trek.
We just became popular for the wrong reason. Oh man. Hey there, folks. Welcome to the Cyber Guys podcast, the cybersecurity podcast for everyone. My name is Andrew Valencia, and as always, I'm joined by the one and the only Mike Hill. Say hi to the people, Mike.
Hey, may the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you. That's right. Today is a fantastic opportunity for myself and Mike to really talk about something we're extremely passionate for. But before we get to that, I have some really good news. You can now download the Cyber Guys podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. If you do like to watch us on the YouTube, we're still here on the YouTube channel. But if you like to hear the invigorating sounds of our voices speaking about cybersecurity, this and that, by all means, take us on the road or listen to us on the run. And if you like to listen to cybersecurity-themed podcasts while you're exercising, I truly admire your commitment. But if you like to watch us, we're still right here on the YouTube channel. Just remember to like and subscribe. Now, with that housekeeping out of the way, Mike, I have a question for you.
Oh man, what is
What if he
this?
doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
Classic.
Hey man, it's May the 4th. That's awesome. Let's talk cybersecurity and Star Wars. I love Star Wars. You can see behind me. I mean, I'm a huge Star Wars geek. I know you, sir, love Star Wars. I mean, look at what you're wearing.
Jedi guards, man. Jedi guards.
Jedi wear black too, right?
And Jedi, don't get it twisted. I know everybody wants to see brown and tan.
I'm going to post for anybody who's watching us on YouTube. I'm putting the picture of Mike up in his full garb, looking super awesome and way cooler than Samuel L. Jackson ever could.
Yeah, right.
You got to go to the YouTube channel for that.
You're hardcore, man. You know, it's funny. Before you go any further, I just gotta mention this. There are different tiers and echelons of Star Wars fans. I think you occupy a much higher tier than I do. I got the outfit though. I mean,
you know what? We didn't have prequels or the sequels to watch. So when I was a kid, we had the movies that you fortunately got to see, in the theater for the first time.
Yeah, I didn't get that in the theater.
But what I did get was a lot of books, so that's what we did. But I digress. We digress. Let's get okay. We're off the rails. Okay,
hey, what tech guy doesn't love Star Wars? So, but the thing is this: in Star Wars, we have hackers. These guys follow around all the main characters all the way, breaking into places. Finding the codes, opening doors, raising and lowering elevators. Even it was the key in Rogue One to finding the secret plans to the Death Star. All of that was hacked by these guys,
or sliced.
Hacked, sliced.
Come on, it's Star Wars.
We didn't talk about that.
We're slicers here.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about cybersecurity in Star Wars, or perhaps the lack of cybersecurity in the Star Wars universe, right?
I think that's a little bit more on point.
I mean, there's tons of examples of just basic sound cybersecurity practice just completely ignored, completely blown through. I mean,
not at all.
I love this. My favorite example is when presented with the proper security protocols and procedures, an officer just goes, I was going to give him access anyways. I don't know if you remember, but in Return of the Jedi,
this movie,
right as the shuttle Tidarium is going to the battle event or going to the plant or the Forest Moon of Endor,
Forest Moon of Endor,
they have expired codes. I want to read to you the actual. I wrote down the dialogue just so you can just to be crystal clear at this, because it's shocking that this happened. So Admiral Piet, of course, is on the bridge and he says, "Shuttle Tidarium, what is your cargo?" Han Solo, as cool as he is, says, parts and technical crew for the Forest Moon. Vader out of nowhere goes, do they have a code clearance? And Admiral Piet says, it's an older code, sir, but it checks out. I was about to clear them. Right then and there, Vader should have thrown him in the brig. That's ridiculous. It was an older code, but it checks out. If it's an older code, it doesn't check out. There is no password expiration in the Empire, I guess.
Yeah, what is that? What is that? Every organization has a password aging policy. Every code gets audited, and access controls get updated on a constant basis. And really secure facilities, we update codes on a daily basis or constant basis, or even with a one-time password every single instance. So the idea that an older code would check out, bad cybersecurity practice. Yeah. I agree with you.
And if it wasn't for, the space magic that Vader has, of course, they would have just blindly let some people onto the planet, some would-be saboteurs. It's a perfect Trojan horse. I mean, the fact that they have clearance codes at all is great, right? That's a start, right? That's a step one of authentication, I suppose. But yeah, it's an older code. We were just going to let them in anyways. It's a good try.
Now, the only exception, though, the only other way of looking at that is if the older code was from this morning.
I suppose older is relative. Is okay. Now you throw me for a loop, because I suppose older is relative. What if so? In my head canon for all of this, to explain this away, is essentially that they're revamping their cybersecurity practices after the failure that was the data breach of the Death Star 1 plans, station plans, and they're going through like CISOs like crazy, right? And this is just the brand new CISO implementing a new policy saying this is what we got to do, and there's a little bit of leeway because they just instituted the policy yesterday. That's my headcanon for that scene.
I hear you, but I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt that older is relative, and they just didn't quite hit the limit on their expiration policy. Since you're bringing up the topic of just bad practices, every time R2-D2 or whatever droid it is goes up to a port, it's connected. It's live. You just have this unguarded, open, live port that any old droid can just plug into and access. There's no rogue device detection. There's nothing. So you have live ports open all over the place that connect to your main system, and there's no physical security checking that.
I think the really Empire certainly has never heard of zero trust architecture or right. Verify, trust no one, inside or out kind of thing. It does seem like not just the Empire, but think about any instance in which R2-D2 plugs in, right? And because I know someone's going to put it in the comments, right? It's called a SCOMP link computer interface. It's a SCOMP link computer interface. That's what these books are. That's what I learned when I grew up. So,
but the point is this, though. I mean, no organization. Forget about your architecture and your authentication mechanisms. No good enterprise cybersecurity leaves open network jacks all over the place that anybody can just plug into. You turn them off, you turn them on when you need them, or you have them in controlled areas. And you're certainly going to have some version of device authentication and rogue device detection in enterprise class systems. I mean, in a home network, you're not going to do that. But in an enterprise class environment today, we're always going to authenticate the devices that are connected to our network. We call it rogue device detection. Is a whole name for it. So the idea that a rogue droid, which is a device, even though it's a very fancy device, is going to be able to connect to the environment and then interact freely, that's bad security.
Yeah, I like this theory that I've kind of thought about over the years. Every time I watch watch one of the movies for the umpteenth time, I always think, is R2-D2 just a really good hacker, a really good slicer, or is R2-D2 a legacy vulnerability? And here's what I mean by that.
All right, that's a thought.
If you go all the way back to when R2D2 was created, he was created by a company called Industrial Automaton, way before the Clone Wars. And R2D2 really cut his teeth in the Clone Wars. He was not only part of the Galactic Republic military, so he was always plugging into ports left and right. He was also heavily involved with the Jedi. He was also heavily involved with the politics, right? The actual Senate itself. He was around everywhere. So not only did he pick up tons of information, but he also got direct access to the software and the infrastructure that the Galactic Republic built their fighters, battle stations, and communication networks out of. Now, if we fast forward to the Galactic Empire, it seems that their designs are more heavily based upon what was going on, what they had in the Galactic Republic at the time, right? Look at the stormtroopers are built directly from the clone troopers. The Star Destroyers are designed directly from, the Star Destroyers that they had in the Republic. The Jedi cruisers, right? Why would their information technology be any different? And why would their communication systems be any different? So
you know what you got me thinking. Go ahead, let's finish.
Yeah, I pose that R2D2 is a good hacking droid. He's got a lot of spunk and personality because he's been around for a long time without a memory wipe. But he's only so good because the Empire has not updated their operating system, and they certainly haven't patched their mainframe in a long time. So he just has general access because he's had it for 40, 50 years.
I think you're onto something, but I look at it a little differently. Some of the most serious security risks that we deal with in environments are lower level risks. In other words, it's one thing to come in through the front door that everyone's expecting you to come in through. But if you have perhaps a rogue chip, a counterfeit chip, or basically device level infiltration, it is undetectable in most cases, which is why we are very restrictive about portable storage devices and supply chain security. Because if you can actually introduce vulnerabilities at a level that operates lower than where your security is operating, you could bypass any security any day. Ultimately, physical access trumps logical access control and security control measures. Even today, there was a huge incident a couple of years ago, not to get too far off on our normal topic, but just to go there for a minute, where they were embedding these small, extremely small, hard to detect malicious chips in these boards that were being put out. Evidently, it was a Chinese company that was behind it, working out of Taiwan, and they compromised the design process for these chips. And these chips got propagated all across the world and even used in some cases in very sensitive places. But because those chips were built into the boards that were actually built into these computers, no one could detect. It wasn't a software-based intrusion. It was a backdoor built in. So I'm digging your argument there that because R2 was a legacy component in their in technical environment or network or whatever you want to call it, he could potentially be that back door to every system, which would explain his ability to just hack into everything.
I don't want to poke too many holes in my own. I don't want to poke too many holes in my own theory. I mean, I think that's sound when it comes to the Empire, no doubt, because the Empire is built upon a lot of people. Basically saying, "Oh, that could never happen. We're too strong, or we're too secure, or they would never dare to do that." I mean, but we'll touch on that in just a moment, and how that relates to kind of like how cybersecurity is developed and actually implemented today, right? You got mission over security kind of stuff. But before we go into that, I think it's important also to recognize that R2D2 is an incredible slicer because he goes into like civilian or industrial centers and just plugs in and he's got station readouts and so on and so forth. I think that there is an idea that permeates through the entire galaxy that's simply perimeter security only, right? That seems to be what they have. The second you get, like you were saying, the second you get past physical access control procedures or physical access security controls, the second you get past those, it's open field day. You get access to everything, right? In A New Hope, they get access to the Death Star readouts. They know that Princess Leia is a prisoner on board simply because they got past, the stormtroopers that were supposed to secure the ship. The Millennium Falcon was a real life Trojan horse that let them in past the perimeter defenses. And the second they got past those, guess what? R2 was able to get all the information he needed. It's kind of the same deal when you look at like anywhere like Cloud City or really anything else. Look at the Millennium Falcon as well. The second R2 actually has the physical access, he seems to be able to get whatever he needs. So there seems to be like a uber reliance on perimeter defense as opposed to, defense in depth.
Yeah, that's actually been one of my biggest complaints for years as a cybersecurity professional. The idea of putting all your confidence in the perimeter and having carte blanche on the inside is the thing that makes insider threats so absolutely damaging and destructive to organizations. And it's one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of zero trust architectures within the boundary. But just basic physical measures. Once you physically get access to something, that trumps any sort of logical access that you could have. If I physically get access to a machine, at some point or another, I can brute force it. I can find some way to break it through. So if I can walk out of an environment with a blade, with an actual computer, and what I want is on that computer, it's just a matter of time. I'll get it. So physical access is everything. So putting all the trust into perimeter security and then giving carte blanche, in the early days, it's amazing how easy it was in many different organizations that I worked with to access server rooms and wire closets. I mean, literally none of them would ever be locked and very often wouldn't be manned. But a lot of organizations are getting a little better about that now. But the whole case of what's happening in the Star Wars world just illustrates the fact that putting all your security in the boundary is just not a good practice.
In generalities, there seems to be more decentralization, but access to everything, right? I mean, there doesn't seem to be like one secure hub, with maybe one exception that we may talk about in a little bit. But ultimately, there seems to be, once you gain at one point of access, you get access to everything. You're able to open doors, you're able to get technical readouts, you're able to silence alarms, you're able to locate tractor beams, right? Tractor beam generators.
Exactly.
It seems like, and it's scary how applicable that is and relatable that is to kind of how we see as cybersecurity professionals, actual security controls implemented in the real world, right? I think we brought it up in a couple episodes ago, but we talked about, how sometimes our clients will go, well, if they get past the front door, then we have bigger problems. Okay, yeah, maybe you do, but that you can't accept that as the worst case scenario, because that's simply not the worst case scenario.
And really, it's evasive. It doesn't even address what could be done, because it really betrays a lack of understanding about how serious that could be.
Yeah, I mean, it really just treats every single potential hacker as like a rebel or an enemy, as opposed to somebody who may accidentally just leave the door open, or may let someone in to an area they're not supposed to be in, or may accidentally click on a link. There's too many real world examples of that occurring, and it seems even though it was written in the 70s, the application of cybersecurity kind of remains the same today. There's a lot more awareness.
Sad, true,
but ultimately, it's a lot more mission focused than security focused than we'd like to admit, I think.
I'd say this is a fun topic, but it just, again, underscores how everything goes back to the way we see things happening in the real world, too. I mean, R2-D2 is just an example, or any other droid is just an example of what not to do.
He's a rolling,
security.
Beeping Trojan horse, that guy. I mean, he really is.
There he is.
I mean,
absolutely.
He's got access to everything. Okay, so maybe let's talk about like some actual like proper procedures that we've seen implemented. One One does come to mind, but it also is immediately negated based on the next example of terrible cybersecurity practices. But when we talk about data at rest, right, and access to data, if we think back to Rogue One, the actual Death Star plans are physically more secure than a lot of the other sensitive information we see kind of anywhere else in Star Wars. So let's talk about that for a moment, right? So it's on an actual like data disk, or it's on a box. It's in a box. All that data is in a box, and it's within a secure facility. It's within a in a skiff. The whole planet, Scarif, right? The whole planet is a skiff, which I think is super cool. That's good sound physical security. I'm really, really trying not to jump ahead and point out all the bad stuff, but let's focus a little bit on how to properly secure in a physical manner sensitive data or hardware components.
Well, you certainly want to have, I think you touched on a second ago, defense in depth, and Scarif definitely had defense in depth. The whole planet had a shield generator around it. And then even into the main building, there was several layers of physical security before you could access the vault. And you didn't even necessarily know where the vault was. Even that information was protected, although not that very well protected. But in the end, they relied on obfuscation quite a bit. The fact that the Death Star plans weren't called the Death Star plans. What they call Stardust. It just so happened that the person sent to get it would immediately know what that reference was and would be able to identify the plans based on that. That's an example of what we call security through obscurity, which is not a good practice. So I'm already touching on the bad ideas, but at least we touched on the physical.
No, that's okay. You kind of took the first point of the bad stuff from me, but that's okay. But yeah, security through obscurity, it's an attempt, but it's not great, right? No. Physically, I think they're pretty good when we talk about defense in depth. Now, here's the big thing that gets me every time. The Death Star plans themselves are not encrypted in any way, shape, or form. There's no encryption whatsoever. Once they have physical access to where that data is stored or to the device that data is stored, it's kind of plug and play, right? They plug it in, they transmit it. It's not encrypted whatsoever. Yeah.
Although we could assume that it was encrypted and they had the keys. They were working with a Imperial droid there, and who would compromise another Imperial droid. So who knows? Maybe in the process,
that's even worse. To be honest, to have your key store on a walking droid. Just walking around. Come on, that's not great.
Hey, man,
that might be worse.
We're poking holes, but, let's give them a little bit of credit. Maybe it was encrypted, and they were able to decrypt it. Maybe. There's nothing in the story that says that, though. So I agree with you.
But yeah, so there's that lack of encryption, and like there's real sound principles when we talk about data at rest, where you have those devices not only physically secured, but also the data itself is secure, right? It's encrypted, and that's again something that we don't see a lot of, unfortunately.
Actually, I can't actually think of any time that the word encryption was used in a Star Wars movie yet. I have to go back and think about that, but I don't think I've ever heard that word ever used in the Star Trek galaxy. So Star Wars galaxy.
Oh my God!
Cardinal Sin. I said Star Trek. Star Wars.
We became really
Star
popular
Trek.
for the wrong reasons.
Star Trek.
We just became popular for the wrong reason. Oh man, I gotta cut that.
Star Trek uses encryption all the time.
We gotta cut all that. We gotta start the whole episode over. No, we can't.
No.
Oh, we're gonna make somebody angry.
Star Wars. It's May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. That's right. We're gonna get it right. We're gonna get it right. No Star Trek references in Star Wars.
We'll probably cut that entire segment. Honestly, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's keep it going.
But I do think that there's something there though with regards to how sensitive data is secured in the Star Wars universe, and I'd like to blame it on Star Wars being written in the 70s, being based on Flash Gordon, and a lot of other sci-fi that was made in like the 30s and the 40s. But encryption's been around for a lot longer than that. Encryption's been around for a lot longer than that. We were encrypting things mechanically.
Lucas has Lucas has always differentiated Star Wars from hardcore science fiction. It's really more science fantasy, and always has been, more so than science fiction. So they break a lot of rules. I mean, just having sound in space breaks a huge rule.
Ultimately, I guess that's the get out of jail free card, right? It's fantasy. It's sci fantasy, not science fiction. Yeah. Okay, last one. I got one more to bring up with you. One more to bring up.
Go ahead. What you got?
So we talked a lot about physical access, getting past perimeter security, and all that stuff. We didn't talk about supply chain management in any way, shape, or form. But I have a good example of really poor supply chain management when it comes to certain pieces of organic hardware. And that's the clone troopers themselves and the chip, the behavioral modification chip that influence them all or force them all to execute Order 66. That's some really bad supply chain management. When you're managing an army and every single one of the soldiers in that army has a little chip in their brain that has a kill order for every general in the army, you probably want to know that, right? You want to have some kind of system set up where you can actually do some quality assurance on the stuff that you're actually implementing and that you're developing and putting out there. Did I not do a great job of that?
That's a really interesting point, because a critical component of supply chain management is trusted sources. I mean, when did they even meet the Kaminoans? I mean, in an earlier episode, in episode 2, Camino, who's ever heard of that? He goes to the library. He's like, if it doesn't appear in our library, it doesn't exist. So out of nowhere, this planet that they thought didn't exist suddenly becomes their key source for their most significant.
I do love how pragmatic it is. It's like, well, the armies, they're there. We might as well use them. Let's not look into it any further. I mean, this will win us the war, right? I mean, I appreciate that.
Bad sourcing, untrustworthy sources.
Exactly, and a massive untrustworthy source completely took down the entire apparatus. The whole organization came down because they didn't do proper supply chain management.
Yeah. And honestly, just like the
link pads. Remember those Lenovo's that we had employed? I mean, when I was in the military, they got rid of those the second they found some of the chips in the back doors that were being implemented there. But yeah, that happens in the real world all the time, right?
As soon as IBM sold off that division to a Chinese company, it was game on for back doors. So you're right. Getting clones from the Kaminoans was not sound practice. Not cybersecurity practice we want to imitate it in any way, shape, and form today. Great stuff, man. Great stuff. Now that we've kind of talked about a business and we've covered all the bases, are you excited for any of the new Star Wars shows and movies coming down the pipe?
No, of course not.
No.
Yes, of course I am. Are you kidding me? Yes. What a time to be alive. Man, what a time. This is great. I'm so dang excited for Obi-Wan Kenobi. I am excited for more Mandalorian. That's fantastic. I'll eat it all up. Let's go.
I gotta know, man. When Luke Skywalker showed up at the end of Mandalorian, were you one of the guys that cried?
That is between me, my wife, and my TV.
All right,
but I may have gotten a little misty eyed. That was pretty cool. It was cool to see it the first time, no doubt.
Yeah, the first time was heavy. I had to watch it about 4 times.
It gets a little more interesting when you start thinking about how much more involved they can make Luke Skywalker in this stuff. But that's a different podcast, and that's a whole different day.
Hey, man, how about Boba Fett on the back of that Rancor?
Look, it's pure emotion when it comes to that. I'd be lying if I said the 7-year-old inside of me was like going insane, and it was even cooler to watch my kid like lose his mind when he's seeing that too. So, hey, Rancor Riders, that's awesome. That was amazing. Stuff. I got nothing. Good stuff. Honestly, I got really nothing bad to say, man. This is a good time to be a fan of Star Wars. I mean, the plethora of geek stuff that's out there. I mean, not even just Star Wars, just kind of like everything else. I'm not too upset about it. I'm not too upset.
No, it's fun stuff. Not everything is a home run. I mean, a lot of people hate the sequel trilogy, but it's Star Wars, man. You just got to enjoy it.
Star Wars is Star Wars. I got opinions, but I'll reserve those because I don't want to end up on Twitter or the bad side of Twitter or the bad side of YouTube or something. But I'll reserve my opinions on everything else. But it's a good time.
We have opinions, and our opinions are probably just like everyone else's, particularly about Episode 9.
Hey, just opinions. Just opinions. That's all they are.
But hey, it's Star Wars, man. Just gotta light them up and get ready.
I got mine in my book.
Get ready to cut through some Sith. You know what I mean?
There you go. There you go.
And hey, and on that note, hey, Jedi wear black too. See, this is green. This is red. Luke's been wearing black ever since.
There you go.
The Jedi.
There you go. That's going to do it for us today, folks. Remember, you can download the Cyber Guys podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or any of your favorite podcast platforms. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. For the Cyber Guys, I'm Andrew Valencia.
And I'm Michael Hill.
Remember,
may the Fourth be with you.
Yeah, remember, stay safe, be secure, be sure, and may the Force be with you. We'll see you next time.
This is the wrong movie, right? Wrong movie, right?